Hey, Carmen, did you get my email? I sent it to you not too long ago. All right, go ahead, and if you're here right now, go ahead and put your name in the chat for me, your first and last name, and then I'm gonna give everybody a couple minutes to join here. There's still quite a bit of people who aren't on this thing yet. All right, those of you guys just joining the meeting, make sure you get your first and last name in the chat for me, please. So that way I can take attendance later on. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So that way we can honor our time here. Those of you guys were on at the correct time. Want to make sure we get out of here on the right time. So just for you guys, I'm gonna share my screen for the majority of class from here on out because I have the task here, so that way I can just write directly on it and you guys can see it that way. But one thing that I just kind of want to talk about are things that you're typically going to need on a day-to-day basis in here. So obviously a pencil so you guys can take notes, a highlighter. I like to highlight all the important information in a question when I'm reading through it. So that's kind of a way to keep me organized. I'm also going to be using a lot of different colors so that way we can kind of, again, keep things organized. So if you have colored pencils, you can use those, or if you have different colored pens, you can use those. A ruler or a straight edge. I know some people don't have rulers at home, but if you have like a book or I don't know, like even an iPad or something, or just, I mean, I have like a case of pens here. This thing has a straight edge. So that way I can just draw a straight line with it. So a ruler or a straight edge, a calculator. We don't need them too often in the beginning, but we will need them quite a bit later on. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Desmos, but that is a website that is a graphing calculator. It's actually pretty cool. I'm gonna go to it right now just to kind of show you guys. I'm sure you probably used it last year. I also referenced Desmos on the Pages tab in Canvas, but you just click on Graphing Calculator here. And Desmos is pretty cool. So you can, I mean, if you want to like write the equation of a line, it literally graphs it for you right here, or it can do just calculations for you. So if you want to do like, I don't know, 12 times 36, and then it'll just give you the answer just like a calculator. So Desmos is a pretty cool resource that you guys can use in this class. So maybe just have that tab open on your guys' computer. Back here. And then extra paper. We're going to be taking notes in here every single day. So I want to make sure you guys have paper to take notes on. One thing I'm going to try to do, I'm going to talk with Mr. Pruitt and see if it's possible, but I kind of want to get these tasks printed out for you guys, and maybe you could stop by the school and pick it up one of these days, just so that way you have a hard copy of this, because sometimes it's hard taking notes when, I mean, I don't want to have you guys write every single word down, you know what I mean? So in the meantime, if you do not have a printer and you did not print this stuff out, one thing you could do, like if you're taking notes today, you just have a piece of paper out, title it with, you know, section 1.1, that's what we're doing today, and it's called Brutus Bites Back. So I got that all from right here. And then you could just put number 1 and then take whatever notes you want to take, put number 2, take whatever notes you want to take, and so on. So this will be good enough for now, but I do want to make sure you guys take notes because you are going to be turning these into me, okay, at the end of the module. So make sure you guys are writing stuff down as we go, okay? There's a few people who are trying to join the meeting here, so let me. Okay. So I would like you guys to unmute yourselves. If you are at a house that's like really, really noisy, probably don't unmute yourself, but I am going to be asking lots and lots of questions. So I would like you guys to yourselves so that way when I ask questions, you guys can just answer them and you can just talk. All right. Can you guys still see me even though I'm screen sharing? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure I won't pick my nose or anything. All right. Just kidding. Okay. So if you really don't want to unmute yourselves, you don't have to, but like almost every word out of my mouth is going to be a question. So I want to make sure that I can hear you guys. All right. So your homework was to kind of just preview the task and just kind of read it over, see what it was going to be about. So hopefully you guys did that. Okay, but we're going to just kind of go through this and get as far as we can. If we do not get through the whole thing, remember on Canvas, I always put the answers to the task. So let's say we don't get through everything, you can finish it on your own, but then you can always check your work on here, okay? All right, so here we go. We'll see how this goes. All right, so Brutus Bites Back. You guys should have actually talked about Carlos and Clarita in Math 1 and 2. Do you guys remember them?
Kind of.
Kind of. Okay, so they kind of keep everybody's names the same, so that way you remember them in the different math classes. So it says a couple of years ago, so this would be in Math 1, they started earning money by taking care of pets while their owners were away. Due to their amazing mathematical analysis and their loving care of the cats and dogs that they take in, Carlos and Clarita have made their business very successful. To keep the hungry dogs fed, they must regularly buy Brutus Bites, the favorite food of all dogs. So it says, Carlos and Clarita have been searching for a new dog food supplier and have identified 2 different possibilities. So one possibility is the Canine Catering Company. Okay, and they sell 7 pounds of food for $5. So it's probably going to be something important. Okay. And if you guys ever have any questions, just ask, okay? Because I can't see you guys right now. Not that I could anyway, because all your guys' video cameras are off. So just speak up if you have a question, all right? Okay. So Carlos thought about how much they would pay for a given amount of food, and he drew this graph. Okay, so again, he is kind of graphing this relationship up here, them selling 7 pounds of food. So you can see down here, the pounds are on the x-axis, and they're selling 7 pounds of food. And if I go up for the money, that would be the $5 right here. That's on the y-axis. Okay. So I would like you guys to try to come up with an equation of this function. You guys know what type of function this is? Like you guys learned about linear, exponential, and quadratic so far.
Hold on. Let me think. It's linear, right?
Yep. So linear, straight line, okay? So we know it's linear. So I'm just gonna kind of jot that down over here. Do you guys remember what the typical equation of a linear function looks like?
Y equals mx plus b.
Good. So this is what your answer should look like for number 1. There should be some numbers in there, but it should be in this format, okay? The only thing, instead of using y, I want to use a better variable that would kind of represent the problem better. So the y-axis is talking about dollars. So what do you guys think would be a good thing to put instead of a y?
D.
Yeah, I would put a D. And then what could we put instead of the X?
A P.
A P for pounds, okay? So I'm going to put those in there. I want you guys to figure out what goes for the M and what goes for the B, okay? Do we remember what M represents?
Slope? No.
Slope, yep, good. And do you guys remember what the B represents?
A y-intercept.
Awesome. Okay. Do you guys remember another thing you called slope? Like how to find the slope? Does that give you a hint? Rise.
Oh,
Rise
rise
or
up or run.
Awesome. Okay, so with those little hints there, I want to see if you guys can figure out what the slope is, the number that's going to go there, and then the y-intercept that's going to go there. So I'll give you a second on your own to just kind of write it in. Don't be afraid to be wrong. We can always just erase it. Okay, does anybody know what the y-intercept is going to be?
0.
0, good. Because it crosses the y-axis at 0. And what about the slope?
7/5.
Very close. Remember, slope is rise first
Oh,
over
5/7.
There we go, 5/7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a little simplified version of this, because what does adding 0 do to anything?
Nothing.
Nothing. So we really don't need it. So I'm just going to put d equals 5/7 p. So that would be the equation for Carlos's graph here. Okay. Are there any questions so far? Okay. So I'm going to zoom out. If you guys like, I don't know if you didn't have time to write everything down, but if you want to like take a screenshot of this, you can do that before I turn to the next page here. Okay. All right, so next page, now Clarita kind of chimes in, and she thought about how much food they could get for a certain amount of money, and she drew a different graph. So we're going to do the same thing for Clarita. We're going to write an equation for her graph. So I would like you guys to go ahead and write that. So again, we talked about how a linear function, the equation should look like this format, y equals mx plus b. But remember, we kind of want to change the y and the x to be talking about the problem. So we want to talk about dollars and pounds, okay? So go ahead and write an equation on your own, and then I'm going to check back with you guys in a minute or so. And just a reminder, put your guys' names in the chat for me if you haven't. I think everybody's on here now. Okay, did I give you guys enough time? I don't want to go too fast. All right, so what are we going to put instead of a y?
I put P for pounds.
Good. Yep, because pounds are the y-axis. So we're going to start with a p this time instead of b. And then somebody else, did we get the slope?
I put 7/5.
Perfect, because it's up 7, that was the rise, and then the run was, and then instead of an x, we put,
Dolores.
good. And then what about the y-intercept?
It stayed the same as 0.
0, 0.
Good, stay the same at 0. So do we really need to put plus 0?
Nah.
No. Good. All right. Good so far. Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Okay, so number 3 says write a question that would be most easily answered by using Carlos's graph, which is the first one we talked about. Second one says write a question that would be most easily answered by Clarita's graph. So if we kind of look at the two graphs side by side, what's the difference between these two graphs?
One's going at a faster rate than the other. Or wait,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So this one would be increasing at a faster rate than that one. Good. Any other differences you guys notice?
Mm. Well, I mean, the pounds and dollars are flipped. But I don't
Yeah,
really-
pounds and dollars are flipped. Do the graphs show the same information?
No.
Yeah. Or no, they don't.
Okay, I heard a lot of no's and yeses. So this meant 7 what?
7 pounds.
7 pounds and $5.
Oh,
Bucks or dollars.
This one was $5,
Pounds or dollars.
7 pounds. So do they show the same information?
Nope.
I'm gonna go ahead and say yeah.
I'm gonna write it out because we're still, so this was 7 pounds. That was $5. This was $5. 7 pounds.
Oh yeah.
So they are the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's different is that the dollars and pounds, they switched them on the X and the Y axis, but it's still the same amount of dollars and pounds. Okay. So let me go back to this one. Okay, so it says write a question that would most easily be answered by Carlos's graph. So do you guys know what Carlos's graph would show?
Mm.
Gonna kind of give you a hint. So on this one, I'm gonna break it up into 2 sections because one's gonna be Carlos's and one's gonna be Clarita's. Okay, see if you guys can fill in the blank for me for Carlos's graph. How much so this graph is talking about dollars and pounds. So Carlos's question would say how much okay, you guys are gonna help me with the rest of it. How much money would it cost to buy so the money is kind of talking about the dollars. So how much money would it cost to buy a certain number of what are we talking about here? The money it costs to get what?
7 pounds of food.
Yeah, 7 pounds of food. So basically, Carlos's question would say, how much money would it cost to buy a certain amount of dog food? Okay, because I know this one shows 7 pounds, but let's say if you wanted to get 4 pounds, You would go over to 4, and then you would go up, and then you could figure out how much money it would cost. Or if you wanted to buy 9 pounds, you would go over to 9 pounds of food, and then you could figure out how much it would cost. Okay, so he's basically saying how much money does it cost for a certain amount of pounds of food. So that would be Carlos's question. What do you guys think Clarita's question would be if you guys talked about the difference between the two being that the pounds and the dollars switched? Instead of saying how much money, hers would say how much or how many.
How many pounds of food can we get for a certain amount of money?
Perfect. So it's literally the same sentence pretty much, but money and dog food are going to be switched, or pounds of dog food. So how many pounds of dog food can you get for a certain amount of money? So again, we're talking about the pounds and we're talking about the money. Okay. So for Clarita's, let's say you have $5. So you're like, all right, I have $5. How much dog food can I get? 7 pounds. Or if I only have $2, how many pounds of dog food can I buy? And then you'd be able to go up to the line to figure that out. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out again if you guys want to take a screenshot of that. All right, is anybody taking a screenshot? I'm just curious. Okay. I'm going to go down to number 4 next. Okay, so number 4 says, what is the relationship between the two functions and how do you know? So I'm going to look at, we already talked about the graphs. Okay, you guys had said they showed the same exact information, but the X and Y axis, the dollars and the pounds were just switched. I also want you guys to look at the equations. This one said, or this one was for Carlos. The dollars equals 5/7 of the pounds. This one says the pounds equals 7/5 of the dollars. You guys notice a relationship going on there?
They use the same numbers.
They use the same numbers, but
They're flipped.
they're flipped. Good. Also, what do you guys notice about the variables?
They also switched.
pounds and dollars.
Yeah, they also switched. Okay, so I'm going to put those two things down that you guys just noticed for number 4. So they use the same numbers and variables, but they're switched. Okay, and we actually have a name for that, which is the whole point of this entire module. We call those, I'm gonna just look down here for a second. Those would be considered inverse functions. Okay. So I'm going to add at the bottom the functions are inverses of each other. So that's like the fancy way of saying what you guys just told me. They use the same numbers and variables, but they're switched. Now, number 5, I don't think you guys really know what function notation is yet, so I'm just going to talk about this one myself. Okay, so we have 2 different functions, technically. We have one function that's talking about dollars, and then we have another function that's talking about pounds. So I'm going to show you guys what function notation looks like. So we have 2 different ones. We had one for Carlos and one for Clarita. So Carlos's was the one on the front page that talked about dollars. So I'm going to kind of explain it in a second. I think you guys are used to seeing, you guys have seen this, right?
Effects.
F of X.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is basically just a fancy way of saying it's a function. Okay. This is the same thing. This is kind of like the F, and this is kind of like the X, but I'm using the D and the P because we're talking about dollars and pounds. This one is just kind of like a general one. Okay. So this means the function of dollars in terms of pounds is the same thing as the inverse of the function of pounds. So this little symbol right here, this -1 exponent, is the thing that means inverse. Okay, so I want to see if you guys can reverse this and tell me what Clarita's would look like. So instead of a capital D, what would Clarita's start with?
Capital P.
Capital P. What would be in the parentheses?
A D.
A D. And then the capital P would turn into a instead of this P right here, what would I write for Clarita's?
It would be a D, and
And then we would have,
Negative 1.
yeah, the little exponent with a -1. So again, the main thing is not that like you totally understand this right now. The main thing is that you guys kind of see that this little -1 as an exponent means inverse. That's the really important part. Okay. All right. Questions so far? Okay. This part should go a little quicker now that we've kind of spent more time on those other questions. Okay, so again, referring back to the first page, Carlos and Clarita had 2 different companies that they were looking at. Okay, so the first company they were looking at was the Canine Company or Canine Catering Company. Okay, now they looked online and they found a different company. So that company that they found is going to sell 8 pounds of the dog food for $6, but they're also charging a shipping fee since it's coming from online. Okay. So as soon as you make an order, you have to pay $5 in shipping plus however much dog food you buy. Okay. So we want to graph this information. And we have the pounds on the x-axis, and we have the dollars on the y-axis. So if we were going to graph this, where do you guys think we would start for the y-intercept for that b part of our equation? This one's a little bit tricky. Take a guess. Even if you're wrong, it's okay. Someone take a guess. How much money are you going to have to start with no matter what if you make an order from this online company?
$6.
$8.
Good guesses.
5.
No. Who said 5? Good. So you have this flat $5 shipping charge. So that means no matter what, you're going to start off paying $5. So that's going to be my y-intercept. And I went on the y-intercept because that was talking about dollars here. Okay. Okay, so I already know that it's going to be, I mean, if I'm looking at my equation, it's going to be something plus 5 because that's my y-intercept. So now we have to include these 8 pounds and the $6. So if I'm here, how far up would I go? Because remember, up is talking about dollars.
Six.
I mean, I guess the only way is up. I mean, up and then over to the right 8.
Oh, 11.
I wish I had a copy of this. Where's it talking?
You know, I'm not the only one who can't hear her, right?
Yeah, I can't hear her. Me neither.